velocities are extremely low. To demonstrate this fact, a special test device was made to hold cartridges one at a time for igniting and filming in slow motion. The 12-gauge shot shell is the most common shot shell available. Without the confinement of a firearm chamber, the shot does not penetrate standard 200-pound fiberboard at a distance of 7 inches. The projectiles superficially mark the fiberboard. Much of the powder is left unburned. An unsupported 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum handgun cartridge exhibits more energy than a shot shell. The brass breaks apart and the bullet may penetrate one sheet of 5/8-inch sheetrock. However, it may not even penetrate that far, which happened here. The .416 Remington Magnum rifle cartridge is one of the largest sporting cartridges, but acts similarly to the Magnum handgun cartridge. Conclusion: projectiles ignited outside cartridges on the market. Consumer packages of shot shells, handgun, and rifle cartridges were dropped at the same time. From this extreme height, 2 of the handgun cartridges ignited. There was no propagation from cartridge to cartridge. Next, 3 shipping cases of the same ammunition were dropped from 65 feet. These cases contained 200 rounds of rifle cartridges, 250 rounds of shot shells, and 1,000 rounds of handgun cartridges. None of the ammunition ignited. Conclusion: when dropped from extreme heights, sporting ammunition is unlikely to ignite. If a cartridge ignites, handgun, rifle, and shot shells were tested. A retail box of each type was shot, followed by shooting a case of the same ammunition. Four cartridges ignited. Five cartridges ignited. Gunpowder poured out of the impacted cartridges. Three cartridges were ruptured without igniting. Five cartridges were damaged. 3 of them were ignited. Gunpowder erupted from the shot shells without igniting. Four shot shells were damaged. One primer was destroyed, which did not ignite the shot shell. Conclusion: most of the ammunition did not ignite. When a cartridge did ignite, there was no chain reaction. A blasting cap was placed inside a box of .458 Winchester Magnum rifle cartridges. The blasting cap destroyed the package. None of the cartridges ignited.
What we just proved is that you can totally destroy the package and not ignite the cartridge.
It was decided to place a blasting cap outside the package. A box of 50 Winchester .45 Colt cartridges was used. A primer was exposed. The blasting cap was affixed on top of the exposed primer. The targeted cartridge ignited, but no other rounds ignited. There was no propagation. The 50-round box was largely undisturbed. Next, an entire 250-round case of Federal 12-gauge shot shells was used. Holes were cut through the fiberboard and consumer packaging to expose a primer. The blasting cap was attached directly against the exposed primer. The targeted shot shell ignited. There was no propagation. The 250-round case was largely undisturbed. The tests showed that blasting caps are usually unable to ignite sporting ammunition. When placed directly against an exposed primer, the blasting cap may ignite that cartridge. There was no propagation from cartridge to cartridge. 200 rounds of Federal 7mm Remington Magnum rifle cartridges, 200 rounds of Hornady 44 Magnum handgun cartridges, and 250 rounds of Federal 12-gauge Magnum shot shells. The bulldozer crushed the cases. No ammunition was ignited. Since crushing the ammunition did not cause the sporting ammunition to ignite, it was decided to conduct an extreme test. All the packaging was removed. The ammunition was left in piles on the ground. The bulldozer then ground the ammunition on the asphalt. This demonstration is extreme, but it shows ammunition's resistance to accidental ignition. During 30 seconds of grinding, 3 shot shell primers were ignited. Many primers were crushed without igniting. Two rifle primers were ignited. No propagation occurred. Many cartridges were crushed without igniting. None of the handgun cartridges ignited. Conclusion: even in the most extreme conditions of compression and friction, sporting ammunition is. The ammunition began to ignite. The ammunition was now fully involved. Melted plastic from shot shells burned on the ground.
The witness plates that we set up made of sheetrock were at various distances from the fire to show exactly how much hit them and with what force it struck. Only a few pieces of the ammunition actually went through the first piece of sheetrock and none penetrated the second. A lot of the pieces of ammunition stuck into the sheetrock and can still be seen protruding from it. We stepped out from behind the shelter that was used for the video cameras in our full firefighter turnout with our face shields down on our helmet, and were able to feel some of the pieces of the ammunition striking our turnout gear and falling to the ground. Nothing with enough force to actually tear into the turnout gear or injure anyone.
Ammunition in a fire can be intimidating. The noise is intense. You can see and hear projectiles flying past you. This test demonstrated that sporting ammunition in a large and intense fire does not create projectiles dangerous to firefighters within a reasonable working distance. 18,000 rounds of sporting ammunition were placed in a mesh box without any packaging. The bonfire was doused with diesel and ignited. The absence of packaging did not increase the intensity of the fire. caused the stand to collapse. The ammunition burned at a consistent rate for 7 minutes until the fire was removed. The plastic from the shot shells kept the fire burning after the wood and diesel fire was removed. Conclusion: the lack of packaging and rifle ammunition. There was a large amount of ammunition in a small area. The wood and diesel fire was intense. These factors created an unusually intense ammunition fire. The fire was ignited.
Now we're going to make an approach with 2 different attack lines, kind of an off angle to the door.
We just completed the firefight on the retail store of over 100,000 rounds of ammunition. We came up with 2 different hoses, and the initial officer to put his wide pattern fog line was almost immediately effective. Dave and I came around behind him with that narrower fog and reached the back of the building, and we were very effective. It worked extremely fast.
As we were approaching the fire, there really wasn't any projectile threat. Anything that came out the door was very low velocity, and nobody got struck as we were making our fire attack by any projectiles from the fire.
The wall in this room was a normal stud wall made out of 2x4s. The front of the wall was covered by 5/8" sheetrock. The back side of the wall consisted of 7/16" wood wafer board. The sheetrock was tested more severely in this test than in the bonfire. The sheetrock in this scenario is only 0 to 5 feet from the ammunition. None of the 115,000 rounds was more than 12 feet away from the sheetrock. There were many penetrations of the sheetrock. The sheetrock penetrations are best seen by the sheetrock dust on the wood sheeting behind. No evidence of any penetration or even any dent was found on the wood sheeting. At one place in the wall, there were 2 pieces of sheetrock overlapping. The second piece was undamaged. Conclusion: 5 pallets of sporting ammunition containing 252,000 rounds were placed in a semi-trailer. Wood and paper fuel was piled against the pallets. The fuel and pallets were soaked with 10 gallons of diesel fuel. The fire was ignited. A firefighter stood in the path of the projectiles and was struck several times with no adverse effects.
We just finished extinguishing the semi-trailer fire. We were able to get up here and knock the fire down very quickly with the 2 attack lines. We had to climb up into the trailer and get at some of the hidden hot spots that were back behind the pallets of ammunition. And we were able to do so while the ammunition was still going off.